AI is reshaping industries, and being at the center of it as an AI product leader is like shaping the future of technology. But what does an AI product manager actually do? And how do you take cutting-edge technologies like generative AI and turn them into real-world solutions? In this video, I'm pulling back the curtain on my role, sharing the responsibilities, the challenges, and the impact of building generative AI-based products. So if you're curious about breaking into AI product management, or just want to know how innovation happens at the forefront, then this video is for you. For those of you that are new to this channel, my name's Tariq. I'm a product and technology leader at one of the world's largest investment banks. I've been working in the corporate world for 20 years, now recently moving into generative AI product management and leading an engineering and product team in this space. And in this video, we're going to talk more about AI product management and how it differs from normal product management and how you can employ some of these AI skills into your product. So as a product manager, your responsibilities span the entire product life cycle, everything from strategy, the vision setting, through to executing and building the product, collaborating with the stakeholders, getting a product out there, the support model for that product, and then feeding back changes and customer feedback into the product. It's an entire life cycle role, and that hasn't changed in the world of AI. You're doing that again, but with the added nuances of using AI's capabilities and baking those into your product management role. So the first thing I do day to day as a product leader in the AI space, but also as a product manager in this space, is really focusing on the strategic responsibilities. So that means working out why AI is there in the first place. Why is it being used in the product? What problem are we solving? And how is AI going to be baked into maybe a whole product portfolio and not just an ad hoc example of being thrown in there for the sake of AI? There really needs to be a purpose for using AI and for bringing that into a product to genuinely help improve the experience for the customer. So first, I spend a lot of my time setting clear visions for the purpose behind AI and why we are using it in our products. And then looking at the entire product set, in my case, where there's 7 or 8 products in the market, is how are these products going to benefit from AI? Are we going to take this on a product by product approach? Are we going to take this as a platform sort of approach where AI is a capability that's consumed by all the products? It's really looking at the nuances of how we're going to strategically implement AI at a product level. And to understand the strategy for AI, you really need to understand the capabilities of AI. So it's a real balancing act between what your customers want and what they are looking for in terms of the problems they are solving, which more likely than not do not require AI to be solving the problem. From a customer's perspective, they do not care whether AI is solving the problem. They just need to get a task done. They need a job done, and AI, regardless or not whether that's being in there, is inconsequential. And that's exactly the role it should play. The end user, the customer of your product, does not need to know that AI is being employed in this product unless it's of benefit to them, it's of value to them. So firstly, it's you understanding what capabilities AI can bring and then mapping them to the user problems, mapping them to the customer problems, and marrying those together to effectively make your product better. As an example, if you have a product that is very heavy on policy documentation, for example, you're taking out a mortgage or an insurance product, and at the end of that you get very lengthy policy documents, and the user, the end user, the customer, may not have the time to read through these policy documents, and you want to provide a summary of these policy documents to the end user in the interface, in the app or the website or whatever your journey is. AI can be used there to first summarize a document, take all of the key information out and present it to the user in a good, concise manner. And that, in fact, is one of the ways AI is being employed, not only in the way our banking operates in investment banking, but also in the industry. Summarization of large documents is a real use case that is easy to get spun up and something that you can do as a product manager and employ into your products. Day to day, it's also important to keep on top of the advancements in generative AI. There are a multitude of models out there and new features coming out literally on a weekly basis. So whether you're using the GPT models, the Gemini models from Google, or Anthropic's Claude models, all of these models have different feature sets that can be beneficial based on the use case. So whether you're using one specific stack of model for your use case, or you want to try using all of them and make your approach and strategy agnostic to the model and flexible, that is something that you need to take on and make the decision to do. And in my case, it's about being agnostic. The strategy that I've gone for in the product set that I lead at the moment is all about giving choice and having flexibility and using the right model for the right need. And over time, this will help us to scale these products to be as impactful as possible. From a strategy perspective as well, and what makes AI product management different to the run-of-the-mill product management is effectively the focus on guardrails and ethics and compliance. So it's really important that there is a level of safety involved when you're using an LLM or generative AI model to help answer queries for a customer or to provide output to a customer. A lot of the time that output is not going to be able to be verified, and there is an element of faith that is required from the model to do its job properly. But there is a level of safeguarding that you can put in place in terms of guardrails, whether that is vetting the responses before they are presented to the user, or it could even be having guardrails that can protect against toxicity, or using the input fields to inject attacks, for example, onto the code base. So it's really important that you have a level of safety, whether it's toxicity, prompt injection attacks, or anything like that, where someone can manipulate the fact that you're using generative AI. It's important to have that baked into your strategy and really make sure you're evidencing and also showing that you are taking security and guardrails seriously. Now, to be very successful as a product manager in the AI space, you really need to be very closely linked to engineering. And in my case, and I think this is the way forward, and a lot of product managers are now moving into this space, their model is not necessarily product managers in one team, engineers in another team. It's a real mix. And my team specifically is a mix of engineers and product managers, and we work together. So I directly manage an engineering team as well as product managers. And that is the best approach when it comes to something like AI, where the engineering is really key to delivering a great experience for the customer. And that means that AI product managers, or the product managers in general, need to be very, very familiar with what the engineers are doing at a code level, not necessarily understanding every line of the code, but need to understand the approach that has been taken, the limitations of that approach, the constraints maybe, but also how that approach can be morphed and added to if there are new features coming in as well. So it's understanding at an engineering level what the AI capability is bringing, and then bringing that to the customer. An engineer may not think about what they're doing from a customer's perspective. They are purely thinking about the output. So say, for example, an engineering team builds a capability, as I've mentioned in my previous example, around summarization. But what happens if that summarization takes 20-30 seconds to load? In this day and age, a customer is not going to sit on the screen and wait for 30 seconds for something to load and show up on their screen to show a summary. So in that example, a product manager needs to work really closely with the engineering team to understand, how do we start making this efficient, and how do we start making the performance better, but then what can we do to make the experience better for the customer? Could it be that we start loading the response streaming in a streaming style, so that we don't wait for the full summary, and maybe it starts to stream the summary in line by line to make it look like it's progressively being built? Maybe that's a better option. But these are things that the product manager has to work out with engineering, and where the engineers may not think of that customer experience, it is the product manager that needs to do that. What is also really important as an AI product manager is to understand the different models that are available when you're employing these into your product. So say, for example, you are going to be looking at imagery as well as text-based input into your products. You need to think about which model is better at reading images and deciphering images. Maybe I'm going to be taking audio as a format or outputting a video. These all have different nuances that some models are better at doing than others. And it's really about understanding that and getting your engineers and the engineering team to do enough testing, and it creates an environment where you can see and make data decisions based on the output of the different models. So for example, there is a tool that my team had to build just for this purpose, a tool that we call the Workbench, which is effectively taking all of these different models, running the same query or prompt through them, and looking at which models come back with the best answers. And this is effectively what you need to do every step of the way. You need to be looking at the different models and how they perform and giving the customer what is the optimal experience and the optimal output based on the data back from these models. And that also leads nicely onto the next point, which is about metrics and KPIs. And in the AI space, you're going to have your standard product metrics, but you're also going to be a real focus on the performance, the time taken to respond, the accuracy and the quality. These things are all going to be added levels of metrics that you need to report back to your stakeholders and project sponsors and product sponsors for as well. One of the things I've noticed about AI product management is that it's constantly in a state of, I would say, hypercare, where you need to be really in tune with the customer base on a daily basis. So say, for example, you have a product out there that is doing question and answers on a knowledge base, and it's using an LLM in the background to do a knowledge base management and really answer questions for the customer. So in a normal scenario, using a knowledge base and not an LLM, this is quite a static approach where you ask a question and you get the answer back. But when you're using an LLM, you're adding that extra level of non-determinism there, where the model can interpret the information that's presented from the knowledge base and then use its own reasoning and then come back with its own answer. So it's never going to give the same answer twice. It's always going to have slight nuances to that. But at the same time, as a product manager, how do you know that it's going okay, that the quality is okay? And right now, the most efficient way to do this is through human feedback. And in the AI products that I've built in the teams that I have, but also in terms of the industry, a lot of it is feedback driven. So whether a response comes in from the LLM and you're looking at whether it's a good answer or not, there are options for you to rate the answer in our products, but also looking into whether the answers were not good enough, and looking at a thumbs down or a 1 out of 5 stars, for example. And then on a daily basis, as a product manager, I have to sit and think about those answers. How many of them were bad? Was it that the question was phrased badly, or was it that the actual response was bad in itself? Or maybe the data was not accurate, the data going into the model. All of these things I have to look at on a daily basis and think about, how do we improve the product? But it's very much a hypercare state. And I think that is the state of generative AI right now, is that because it's always moving, you have to be very resource intensive with these products. So bear in mind, in the AI product management space, there really is a lot of, I would say, hypercare, a lot of high touch. You're going to be involved a lot in talking to customers, but also reviewing results very regularly. If you work in a regulated industry like I do in investment banking, or maybe you're in a legal profession, or you work in a consultancy, for example, or any of the regulated industries, pharmaceuticals, etc., there's going to be a level of risk control that is going to be needed for these products. Whether you're putting these products out to the employee base, say for example, you're building generative AI tools for employees to increase their productivity or to help them with their day-to-day tasks, these products will need a degree of risk control. And what I mean by this is, what sort of data is being fed through to the models? Is that being safeguarded? Are there rules around that? What can you block technically with, for example, hard blocks? So in my case, if customer data is very sensitive, or whether there is data that is public, we built features that enable you to block types of data that is sensitive or has personal information in there. And things like this, where you can do a hard block from a technical engineering perspective, is really good to satisfy the risk and controls and the risk teams within your regulated industries. And the same, if you cannot do this on a sort of hard blocking level, it may be that it's directive, it's information that you provide the user. Have you got all that information in place? And are you looking and reviewing that regularly? So it could be that the end user needs to do some form of training. If they're an employee, maybe they have to do some data policy training. Or if it's a customer, letting the customer know transparently what they should and shouldn't be doing with the model, and what would work as an example of a good question versus what wouldn't work. So giving that level of education and guidance in a directive fashion is something that you don't usually have to do in a core e-commerce journey or a customer facing journey, because these days the customer bases and the users, they know a lot about the digital online world and how to do these things. But in the AI space, it's a bit different. You have to really educate a little bit the customer, as well as employees if you're building employee products. So there is a little bit of a nuance there in terms of guidance and creating an environment that is very kind of risk controlled. And when you introduce AI into your product, and for me as well, it's been really about the support around that. So when you introduce these models into a product, there is an element now of having a governance framework around managing and supporting those models. Models get updated with new versions. How are you going to introduce those models into your product? If a new version of a model comes out, there's going to be a degree of testing that needs to be done to make sure that the answers or the quality of the output that you're using the model for is accurate. So all of this brings extra layers of governance, extra layers of testing and robustness to your product. And this is there are a lot of plates spinning in the AI space effectively on a day-to-day. For me, it's a toss-up between managing testing these new model features out, bringing them in to the existing products, but then also looking at the feedback from customers as well. So there's a little bit of a balancing act between when do you bring in a new model and a new version of a model, and then how do you marry that up with the feedback that's coming from customers as well, and improving the existing product. So there is a lot of state management going on here effectively between the model itself and what the customer is experiencing. And when I've talked about all of these different areas, it's starting to paint a picture that to be really successful with an AI product needs a lot of different people, a lot of different teams. I've mentioned engineering, I've mentioned risk and controls, but also you've got the product management and the design space. But then equally, you're going to need infrastructure to help you set up and bring in the new models. So this is really a multidisciplined approach. AI product management really needs a good cross-functional, non-siloed approach to working. And if you're fortunate enough, like I am, to build a team that is multidisciplined, I really think this is the future, in the sense that a product team needs to be fully fledged, that it's engineering, it's got tech writing, it's got design, it's got test, it's got all of these things of a software development lifecycle as well as product merged together. This is the way forward, because the only way you can iterate is really be close to all of these things. As the engineering improves, then you can use the engineering knowledge to help make the customer experience better. And likewise with the infrastructure, having that autonomy over the infrastructure and understanding how that works as well is really important. So it's really a multidisciplined approach, and to be successful at it and doing it in a large company means you need buy-in from all of these teams. If you do not run a multidisciplined team, you're going to have to get mandates for all of these from the different teams and make sure it's their priority as well to release this. And as an AI product manager, and generally in the space where there is innovation, there is a lot of education that needs to be done. And as I've mentioned in this video already, but there has been a little bit of hand holding for the customer, where you will need to take the customer on that journey and explain to them what they can and can't do in some cases, especially if it's an internal product that you're building. If you're doing productivity gains, then it's really showing the user what is possible. So there's a lot of education there. Sometimes when you throw a product out there, like an AI, generative AI based product, you really have to give examples of how to use it well. And you'll be surprised at how many individuals do not know how to use these products well, because they're not close to the AI space and they do not know what good prompt engineering looks like or how to craft the ultimate prompt. You've got to give this guidance to your employee base if it's an internal product, or to customers. Maybe start by phrasing some example prompts for them if they are navigating a user base, or have some pre-selectable prompts there for them as well. So it's really a toss-up as well between educating the user, giving them the freedom to explore and be creative in some cases, but also being directive to make sure they get the most out of the product. So if you like the sound of being in a product management role but having a slightly more technical edge to it, learning more about this generative AI space, then this is really the space for you to be in. You do not have to be from a product management background to be a successful AI product manager. You could have come from an engineering background, you could be a project manager, for example, you could be in a customer facing role. But these skills and these day-to-day activities that I've mentioned here, they're all things that could be easily learned, and you do not need to be a specialist in data science or, in natural language and the AI models itself to benefit from these. It's really important to distinguish that in a lot of the cases, you will not be training the model. In an AI product management role, you'll literally be using what is available, and you're just going to be using the model and building a product on top of it. So effectively, you will not need to be worrying about training and machine learning. And that is very key to understand. I do not want you to think that this is something that has a high barrier to get into. It's something that you can get into very easily, and it's very consumable right now. So if you have not started to explore the capabilities of AI, please start doing that. Please start looking at GPT and using that interface. Maybe you can use Notebook LM as well as a way to help you get into product management AI, but also just using the AI capabilities. I have a video actually on using Notebook LM in your job search, and that is actually so impactful in doing that. So please watch that video if you do want to look for jobs in the AI space. Use Notebook LM to help you in that fashion as well. So there's lots that you can do in the AI space, and if this is a topic that you want to hear more about, then do let me know. I'm happy to make more videos in this space. If you enjoyed this video, check out the rest of the videos on my channel where I try and demystify product management, AI, but also getting you up into the executive levels of leadership and trying to help you navigate your corporate career. So these are the things that I am happy to help with, and this is what this channel is all about. So stay tuned for more content in that space.